everybody. Really glad to be with you this week. I wanted to tell you about a few things coming up in the next few days as we come to the end of October and begin into November. Starting to get cold and rainy. But yeah, I wanted to tell you about a few things, and then maybe if there's time we could talk a little bit about the arrest in the CHRISTIE sexual assaults case. But first I want to make sure you know about a couple of things coming up. One is that Sunday, October 28th at the Witchwood Barns, which is, as you know, in the CHRISTIE and St. Clair area, just south of St. Clair, between CHRISTIE and Witchwood, there is a celebration for the Day of the Dead. The Day of the Dead is actually November 2nd, but Witchwood Barns and Altars Theatre with the Aztec Dance Company want to celebrate that this Sunday, October 28th, from 2 to 7 p.m. And that's at the Witchwood Barns. It's a free event. There will be a crafts and art market. Lots of wonderful craftspeople and artists in this neighborhood, of course, that have their booths and their studios at the Barns. And so, yeah, they're hoping that you'll join them to celebrate the Day of the Dead on October 28th from 2 to 7 p.m. The next thing I want to tell you about is we got a couple of things coming up, but first I want to do a clarification. I think I talked with you last week about the Toronto Women's Bookstore closing and a big event that they're having on Tuesday, October 30th in the evening. That event is still on, but in case I gave the mistaken impression that the bookstore actually closes on October 30th, it doesn't. The bookstore, after 39 years of serving this community, is closing its doors on November 30th. So there is another month left for you to go into the bookstore and pick up some items. I went in the other day and bought a couple of children's books, as well as a piece of art that is going to look really wonderful on my wall, and helps me to have a little piece of the bookstore with me as it ends its 39 years. So on November 30th, that will be your last chance to go to the bookstore and purchase items. But on Tuesday, October 30th, at 7:30 p.m. at the bookstore, that's 73 Harbord Street, there is an evening of women's words. And this is a celebration of the bookstore's wonderful, important, vital history and membership in our community here in Toronto. There's going to be readings by many writers and a chance to speak about feminism and the store's history. Also another chance, of course, to help the owner, Victoria, with the practical work of closing the store and purchasing items in the store, so that there is very little to do on November 30th. So Tuesday, October 30th, I hope to see you there. An evening of women's words. And, you know, the bookstore is one of those things I think lots of us take for granted. We pop in every once in a while, but we haven't been in as often in the last few years as we used to be, unless it's to attend events and that kind of thing. It's important for us to support our local bookstores because we're really going to notice when this institution in our community is gone. And certainly sorry to see that it's closing, but very, very appreciative of Victoria and Aidan and the other folks who have kept that bookstore running and open and poured their hearts and souls into it for the last 39 years. So many, many thanks to them. And again, as I say, let's show our appreciation by going into the store, picking up some items, buying stuff for people's birthdays, for upcoming holiday gifts and that kind of thing. And celebrate with them on Tuesday, October 30th at 7:30 p.m. Many, many readers that evening, and you can go to the bookstore website, that's womensbookstore.com, and hear all about it, as well as plans for other events over the next month, book launches and other types of things going on. The bookstore remaining vital and important and a source of inspiration right up until the end on November 30th, 2012. The night before the bookstore event, I want to draw your attention to two events coming up around the issues of immigration and refugee rights. The first is on Monday, October 29th. It's called Beyond Refugee Health Cuts, Examining the Roots and Nurturing Resistance. And you'll know that's on Monday, October 29th from 7 to 9 p.m. at Steelworkers Hall, 25 Cecil Street. I'm sure many of you have been down to Steelworkers for events over the years. The website, and we'll put it up on the screen for you, is www.health4all.ca, and we'll put that up on the screen. And this is an event where health workers healthcare workers, as well as representatives from the Roma Community Centre, the Immigration Legal Committee of the Ontario Law Union, and members from Health for All, as well as others, will discuss the actions that our federal government has taken to change immigration laws and to change the the federal health program, so that refugees, as you remember in the summer, were cut off of much of the very important health care that they need. We've also seen a Refugee Exclusion Act, or the Bill C-31, the act that would very much criminalize those who arrive in Canada in groups. And of course, we've seen lots and lots of other changes to immigration law that unfairly target refugees and new immigrants, newly married immigrants, for example, being unable to leave a relationship for 2 years after they immigrate to this country. That's going to trap a lot of women in abusive situations. We also see increases to the temporary migrant worker program. This is fostering, being used to drive down wages in Canada. It's being used to foster anti-immigrant bias, and it also keeps lots of Canadians out of the workforce. So these are all things that we need to be talking about. We're inspired by healthcare workers who are refusing to deny refugees their health care, which is amazing. We've seen healthcare workers and others occupy MP offices, disrupt their press conferences, petitions signed by tens of thousands of people across the country. So this forum on October 29th is a chance to talk about all of these movements of resistance, and to talk and to strategize further about what we can do, particularly when we've got particular communities targeted, like the Roma community, which has been subject to all sorts of scapegoating and hateful diatribes by certain political commentators. So hope to see you there. Monday, October 29th, 7 to 9 p.m. at Steelworkers Hall. And you can go to www.healthforall.ca for more info. And following that, in the same vein, on November 4th, there's an important rally at David Pico Square. That's King and John Streets behind Metro Hall at 4 p.m. on November 4th. That will be on a Sunday. We've got a march against racism in Jason Kenney, and this march is called the Honoring Our Communities March. This is a march to Jason Kenney is in town to receive to speak or receive an honor, and so this march is a march against racism in Jason Kenney. This is a march against the recent moves that have been made and the changes that have been made to immigration laws that unfairly target some communities of migrants, particularly racialized communities. We need to understand what leads to migration and refugee situations in the first place. Often Canadian corporate interests are feeding the displacement of people within their own countries. Those people, of course, flee to countries like Canada in hope of safety and a better life, and once they arrive here, they can face criminalization upon the moment of coming off of a boat. If they're in a group, for example, they can face deportation after years and years and years of living in our communities if they're found to if they're convicted of a crime and sentenced to a term over 6 months. They lose their health care if they're refugees, and on and on. So this march is to protest those kinds of decisions, and particularly to protest Mr. Kenney. Jason Kenney has taken delight in increasing the numbers of deportations and increasing the exploitation of migrant workers, and it's time to let him and the Conservative government know that people are not in favor of these policies and are standing up against them. So November 4th, 4 p.m., rally at David Pico Square, King and John, and the website is www.bit.ly/honoring our communities. And if you go on Facebook and plug in Honoring Our Communities, you'll find the event there, and you can join and find out more about it. Lastly, I just want to say that I, along with all of you, I'm sure, was shocked to hear about the random knife attack and murder of a woman, a refugee, a woman who's a very hardworking woman known as Nikki, who worked at one of the downtown hotels, and was, by all accounts, a very feisty, a very fun and hardworking woman. It's really a shock. People in that community are coming together through vigils and trying to honor her memory, as well as talking about how to make their communities safer. This follows, of course, the string of sexual assaults in the Bloor and Christie area. We really have to look at, there other commentators have talked about the crisis in masculinity we're seeing, the attacks on women in the Bloor and Christie area, particularly when it's found that the person accused of this is a 15-year-old boy. Certainly I know I reacted to that with as much sadness as anger and relief to some extent that someone had been caught. We'll have to see if he indeed is the person that has committed these assaults. But if he has, we have to really look at what's going on with young men and their beliefs that they can gain power, and that it is a legitimate way to gain power by sneaking up on women and grabbing them and sexually assaulting them. There's been some excellent stuff circulating on the web, on Facebook, including a blog post by a young woman named Emma M. Woolley about what it's like to be a teenage girl, talking about the fact that we shouldn't be surprised that a 15-year-old would do this, because in fact it's the experience of teenage girls every day in their lives, at school, at the mall, hanging out with friends, that they are subjected to unwanted sexual touching, groping, remarks, comments, harassment. We saw that that was the case in the case of Amanda Todd, where she was sexually harassed. A photo that she took was circulated and brought back to haunt her. She was beaten up, she was bullied, but there was sexual violence and misogyny at the heart of that. In terms of the Christie Bloor assaults, we have to also be asking questions about police response. We now find out that the police knew or had this person as a person of interest after August, after many of the assaults happened in the summer. Since September, they have been questioning. Their reports say they have been questioning and following someone, and it begs some questions. If that was the case, why was it the Thanksgiving weekend that 3 women were assaulted? If the police had this person in their sights and supposedly were talking to him, warning police in other cities that he was coming to their city, why did that warning not extend to women in the neighborhood? Why were we continuing to believe that the suspect was an older person, older man, long after the police had identified a 15-year-old as a suspect and indeed had talked to him about this? So why were they not following him? Why did he get out of, why was he able to commit those assaults, if indeed he did, on Thanksgiving weekend? Why did police not extend more information to women so that women could prepare themselves and protect themselves and practice ways and strategies to deal with anyone sneaking up on them from behind? So these are questions we need to ask. We need to keep asking, but we particularly need to look at masculinity and expressions of male power, because they're coming fast and furious, and they have always done, but we need to step up and question this. We particularly need men to be in on this conversation. Thanks, and we'll talk more about this in the coming weeks. Bye.